the Everything But Politics podcast.
Welcome back, friends. Wherever you are and however you may be listening, thank you for joining us here on episode 73 of the Everything But Politics podcast with the great Spencer Lodge. Spencer Lodge is an entrepreneur, investor, and host of Unscripted with Spencer Lodge. Spencer, good evening to you.
Good evening. Good to see you. What is it? 5 o'clock here. You're right. It is good evening.
8 a.m. here. Well, it's good to have you here. How's your day been so far, brother?
Always good. Yeah. We live in Dubai. The weather's great. People are great. We don't pay income tax. Everyone's positive and optimistic. So it's unlike where you're from and where I'm from.
So Spencer, ever since I discovered you and really your social media accounts, I'm curious as to how you manage your time as, an entrepreneur, investor, and of course, podcast host. I mean, today, for example, how do you like to go about what you consume, what you put your time and energy towards?
I've got two skills, okay, two very clear skills. Skill number one is I'm a great salesperson. Skill number two is I'm good at finding good people and delegating to them. So I've made it my business for the best part of 30 years to focus on finding good people that can do work I don't want to do, I haven't got time to do, or I'm not able to do. And so that's when everyone thinks I'm busy, I'm buying time all the time by bringing these people into my world. And so my business partner, Danielle, who is a life force for all of our group of companies, runs that stuff on a day-to-day basis. So that's handled. We speak to each other every day, but for 20 minutes. And then, there's a team of 7 people that work on the podcast. So there's a lot of work done in the background. I'm the guy that shows up after doing my homework and research and goes, toe to toe with the guest. And then the other stuff that I do, like the documentary we just made on human trafficking, that took some time to film. But again, I'm no expert in all aspects of that. I'd come in and do my part. So I'm careful with my time. I'm careful how I manage my time. But also I like being busy as well. I'm one of these people that when I'm busy, things seem to happen, luck comes my way. Action seems to be taken when I'm busy. If I'm sat around scrolling, then I'm a danger to myself and anyone around me.
Well, it's like that expression, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And obviously you got a great start in I believe your early 20s in sales. What exactly were you selling and how did you kind of find this greatness that you speak of?
So what I was selling, you probably don't even know about this type of stuff anymore. Fax machines, photocopying machines, this kind of stuff, Xerox machines, I think it used to be called. But I was 19 when I started selling that. And I was just taught by really great salespeople, great sales trainers. They taught me an awful lot. And I was at the age where I wasn't interested in school or college or university. It didn't seem to have any impact on me, but associate learning with making money, and all of a sudden my ears pricked up and I was full focus, full attention, and that's how it all started on my journey.
That's very interesting, especially considering the fact that most people in their 19, they're partying, at university, just going about their life. Obviously your route was a little different. Did you have any interest in learning prior to that sales job at 19 years old?
Nothing, not a bit, not anything.
So just you saw the dollar sign and a light bulb went off in your head?
Yeah, and I actually had a conversation. I had spinal surgery 10 years ago, and I'm with this neurosurgeon, really cool guy called Dan. And I'm like, Dan, why did you become a neurosurgeon? He said, well, when you study medicine, you've got to go through the standard medicine, years of university. He said, but then you choose your specialist subject. And I chose neurosurgery because I read a book about a neurosurgeon that was a multimillionaire. And I thought, that's good enough for me. And I think that, I can be a multimillionaire. Right, I'm going to be a neurosurgeon. For me, it was different. But the same kind of theory is, I can make money doing this. Okay, I'm going to pay attention to this. And remember, when you don't come from money, you're always looking for a way to make money. And people say money doesn't make you happy, but maybe money is a byproduct of that. No matter how big or small that success is, it's a byproduct of that. And for me, winning was what mattered. I wanted to win. I wanted to win at something. And every time you made a sale, you made a win. Every time you beat somebody in the office, you won. Every time you were the top performer for the week, you'd won. And so that kind of became addictive. It became my drug. And that's what I focused on.
And why was it important for you to focus on the deals over the money?
I'm one of these people that never believes in sales that you should ever, ever focus on money, because what people get is something called big deal-itis. So they're working on these deals. Let's say your average deal, I don't know, let's keep it simple. Let's say your average deal pays $5,000, but there's a deal you're working on that's going to pay $100,000. People get sucked into this insane amount of time that goes into focusing on that deal. Now, those types of deals don't come up very often, and most of the time that company doesn't get those types of deals. But the energy and the thoughts, because people are thinking about how they can spend the money before they've even earned it. So for me, it's like, come away from the money and just treat every deal as a deal. Use the same philosophy, the same approach. A deal is a deal, whether it's a tiny little deal that pays you $50 or it's a deal that pays you 5 million. A deal is a deal. And getting into that enabled me to understand that then the money will come. So stop worrying about the money and keep focused on, those small wins every day.
Absolutely.
So I've worked in sales, and we all know those guys that obviously being relentless is a good thing, but they're relentless to the point that they have no problem selling things to family members or friends, and even ruining friendships for the quick commission. How do you avoid being that guy that just doesn't care about building relationships, wants to sell anything to anyone, and just kind of get it in the bank?
So we've got two things to consider here. Number one, a code of ethics I have is that if I wouldn't sell it to my mum, then I shouldn't sell it to anyone. So that's my first rule. Okay. If I wouldn't sell it to my mum, then I shouldn't sell it to anyone. That's the first rule. Secondly, being that guy. In every industry, there are good guys and bad guys. There's bad lawyers, bad doctors, bad real estate brokers. There's bad business owners. There's bad guys in telecoms, bad guys in IT, bad guys in software, bad guys in social media agencies. Every business, somebody is selling something. When it's out and out sales versus kind of like a more refined version of sales, we think about it differently. So think about it like this. You go to the doctor and the doctor says, "What's wrong?" And you tell him what's wrong. You're not waiting for a sales pitch, because you go in there because you need the service he offers. You go and sit down with a lawyer. You don't sit down with a lawyer and say, "Yes, I'm considering using a lawyer. I'm shopping around at the moment. I'm going to interview 5 lawyers and decide which ones work for me." No, you go in there and what does the lawyer say? "What's wrong?" You go and see the accountant. "How can I help?" What you've got is this trust for these professions where there's some mistrust for other professions. The mistrust makes us cautious around those other professions. The trust makes us naive around the more refined professions. And that's where a lot of people get their fingers burned. So I think we have to come away from this kind of like that in every industry, there's out and out salespeople that just want to make a fast buck. They just want to make money. They don't care. They want your money from you. They want your company's money from you, period. But you've got to remember something. There isn't a single business on this planet that is anything more than a hobby unless it makes money. And so the money has to come through the door from someone in the organization. And it's not the secretary, and it's not the accountant. 9 times out of 10, it's the business developers, or whatever fancy title you want to give them, that are out there finding opportunities for that company. If they bring opportunities in and those clients spend money, then everyone's salary gets paid, the rent gets paid, and then the company can make some profit. So I think we need to really reframe how we see salespeople a lot of the time. Understand there's bad guys in every business, but overall, most salespeople aren't bad. And if you didn't have salespeople, a lot of people wouldn't have a job.
Yeah. And I have so many questions for you regarding, operating and growing and obviously scaling a business, but I'm still interested in this sales avenue. And for you personally, with your experience, do you think in your career you've been more profitable with finding new customers or recurring customers that you have good relationships with?
But there's 3 points to this. So new business is the toughest business to get. Getting referred to potential clients is probably a little bit easier than cold opportunities. And getting more business from an existing client is way easier, way easier than getting new business on those other 2 examples. So everybody should be looking at what they can do to build the best relationship they can with every single client they have, go above and beyond. So some simple examples. Every single client of mine gets me singing to them on their birthday. All right, sounds weird, doesn't it? Okay, but I sing happy birthday to them on their birthday. I send them a video of me, literally with my awful singing voice, singing happy birthday. We make sure that wedding anniversaries get recognized, children's birthdays get recognized. Okay. We make as much effort as we possibly can to demonstrate that we care about them. Okay. We understand them, and we're their friends, their fans, and their business associates.
And obviously, like it seems to me that in your early 20s, money was a big motivator for you and got you up in the morning. What is that thing now that kind of motivates you?
Yeah, it's definitely not money anymore, and I'm very grateful that isn't the motivator. And the amount that anybody has, if they have money, is relevant to their particular situation. So nobody has to be focused on being a billionaire. You know, everybody has to be focused on being financially secure in whichever way that looks for that individual. But for me, I want to be remembered for something. I want when my funeral happens and there's someone standing there reading the eulogy out, I want that eulogy to say he made a difference. He did this, he did that, he did that, and it was worthy. You know, I don't want anyone to say at my funeral, what a nice guy he was. I really liked him, because that means nothing to me. Now, whilst I want that, that means that through my life, I want to have the feeling that I'm making a difference to someone somewhere in some way. And so I spend my time, you know, that's my crack cocaine, you know, looking for that addiction that I've got to wanting to try and make a difference to people's lives. And I have some success with it. I'm not fully successful with it, but I have some success with it. And the feeling I get from doing that is worth 10 times any dollar you could ever put in my pocket.
And when did you kind of realize that was your key motivator?
Well, it wasn't. And again, a lot of the time we get stuck into this, you're in a lane. You can change lanes. You can become somebody different. And when I was in my 20s, I was a different person to the person I am now. I grew up, I matured. I mean, I got some examples for you. I got married when I was 26. Okay. I believe it should be against the law for any man to marry anyone until they're 40. Okay? Like, it should be banned. You should be put in prison if you even think about it. And that's because anyone under the age of 40 doesn't know jack shit about what a marriage is all about and the responsibilities that go with it. They haven't got enough experience in life to be able to be a good husband and a responsible father. Now, of course, there are outliers. There are examples out there where, you know, a guy got married at 19, he had 5 kids, and he's the greatest father in the world. But overall, most young men are idiots. Okay, that's a nice way of describing them. Okay, and so let's get that. You know, I mean, I've got 2 daughters. I'm terrified of people like you two. You know, coming up to my door and knocking on the door with a bunch of flowers, and I'm like, oh, I know what he's thinking. Oh my God, here we go. You know, I don't want that, because I know what's, you know, the brain isn't in there when we're young. It's somewhere close, but not there. And so it's important that we recognize that. But furthermore, as a young man, I had something to prove. I needed to prove to the world that I could be somebody. And the measurement back then was money and success. And that's why you see a lot of young people wasting money on fancy cars with high car payments and fancy watches and shit, basically, that you don't realize is shit until you get above 40. When you're above 40 and you look back and you're like, what the shit in hell was I doing with those installments on that car? I mean, it was just a bloody car. But it's like part of life's test and life's journey. And my dad advised me that it was a bad idea. Your parents will advise you some of the decisions you make are bad ideas. You don't listen to them because you know best. Because what do the old people know? They don't know shit about your life, do they? And so, because they're idiots and they're old. What do you know? The world's different, you know, for goodness sake. You didn't even have cell phones when you were young, Dad. What do you know? And so we think it's different, but it's not. It's exactly the same. You know, I'm sitting here at 53 years old now, and I'm looking at my 21-year-old and my 24-year-old kid, and I'm like, it's not different. Trust me, it's not different. But are they listening to me? No. So this passage we have to go on, I was on that same journey. Cars, houses, watches, fancy jets, all this stuff. Then you get a bit older and you realize, maybe that's not so important. What actually is important? Going to a restaurant where the music's not too loud so I can have a conversation, you know, avoiding the nightclubs because I couldn't imagine anything worse than going somewhere where it's people spraying champagne and you're shouting in each other's ears and no one can understand what you're saying. Yeah. And all that kind of jazz.
Well, and Spencer, like I told you before we started here, we do have a young following with our show here. And I feel like a lot of people probably do have those expectations of the club life, the jets, the watches, the cars. Obviously, it's one thing to hear you say it, but how can these people, truly take that in without experience what you've experienced?
Well, you look, I think a great way to kind of work with it rather than push against it, because if there's lots of young people watching or listening to this, they're going to go, fuck you, Spence, because they think they know best. So what I'd say is don't stop people doing it, but get people to think about money differently. Rather than taking that money and wasting that money, okay, and saying, I live to live for now, I'm going to live forever. Why don't you become a really smart investor? Or why don't you work out how to become financially secure by the time you're 25 or by the time you're 30, financially independent? And what does that amount of money look like? It might be $100,000, it might be $1 million, whatever that number is, and say to yourself, right, I'm going to work really hard to get to that point. Once I get to that point, okay, that's when I know I'm in comfortable territory. And so the way of doing that is looking at how your income is spread in different ways. Now, whether you're a Bitcoin geek or whether you're a real estate guy or a stock guy, that doesn't really matter. The fact is you want to be really smart with your money. And if I go back to being 18 or 19 years old again, my rules would change to the following. Save 50% of everything you earn, okay, and get that money invested. 50%, regardless of whether you're in $1,000 a month, $10,000 a month, $100,000 a month. Save 50%, okay, for the next 10 years. So a great way of thinking about it, if you into the young people into crypto right now, crypto is a long-term play. It's not a short-term play. So start putting every single month, okay, 50% into your long-term play. Now that could be a basket of equities, a basket of crypto, a basket of real estate, whatever it is. Actually, there's no point even having that conversation around what it should be, but get 50% and get it working for you. Because the secret to really being successful and happy, okay, is waking up every single day, knowing you don't need to lift a finger, okay, to live the kind of life you want to live. The second best thing is waking up every day knowing that you can spend that time doing something that you really, really care about. Now, that could be training and developing young people. That could be something to do with your church. It could be something to do with opening a bloody nightclub if that's what you want to do. I don't know, but doing something that really matters to you. And what you'll find is 5 or 6 years down the road of you getting that money working for you and you seeing it stack up, you then start looking at the idiots that have got $3,000 a month on the Lamborghini, and you sit there with the emoji like that because you realize they're idiots, and you didn't make that mistake in exactly the same way. Maybe you had the Jaguar and not the Lamborghini, and maybe you went to the club once every 2 weeks instead of once every other night, and maybe you decided not to buy drugs this weekend when you were buying drugs the weekend before. I don't know, whatever it may be, you don't all need to be wearing Prada, Gucci, and Louis Vuitton, okay? And in fact, everybody that looks at people that has got money, that looks at people that dresses like that, I promise you, we all look at you and go, idiot. We don't look at you and go, oh, he's cool because he's got a Louis Vuitton man bag or some Louis Vuitton tracksuit or hoodie on. We don't think you're cool. We think you're idiots, but we'll leave you to it.
That's so funny. And speaking of the financial intelligence that you mentioned, 2 decades ago, you make the move to Dubai. Was a large part of that due to the tax laws out there?
No, I'd lived overseas for 30 years now. So I was already overseas from the age of 23. So I'd moved to Hong Kong when I was 23. So I've lived in 10 countries, Hong Kong, Thailand, Malaysia. I then moved to Brazil, Egypt, Slovakia, Italy, the Netherlands. What have I missed? Nigeria and then Dubai. So 10 countries. And so I've lived in all these different countries. And every time I've moved to a new country, I've been told people are different. Okay, it's different here. We focus on the differences. And I can't urge people enough to stop focusing on what's different and start focusing on what's the same. I don't care what color your skin is, where your background is, what education you've got. Do you want to have children that you can be proud of? Yes or no? Do you want to be married to someone beautiful that loves and respects you? Yes, you do. Do you want to have a successful career? Yeah. Do you want to live in a safe place where there's no crime? Yeah. Do you want your family to live a long, healthy life? Okay. And do you want to live a long, healthy life? Yeah. So actually, we're way more the same than we are different. And if we start focusing on the fact that we're more similar than we're not, we'll start to realize that we're really valuable for each other. And we all want the best in our lives for ourselves and for everyone around us.
You know,
That's a great answer. And
sorry, Mary, go.
I was just say, prior to being in 10 different countries, when you were growing up, what was your perspective like as a 19-year-old kid?
I've got no money. I want some money. How do I make some money? That's kind of like what it was as a 19-year-old kid. And then I was told, because I didn't go to college and this kind of stuff, that I probably wasn't going to get a great job and have a great career. And then these guys taught me about sales, and they taught me about selling, and they taught me about hard work and hustle and graft and grind and sacrifice and early mornings and late nights and rejection, which is one of the biggest things they taught me about. And learning that when I was 19 years old made me a lethal weapon, because I got into the financial services industry at 23, and they were like, "You're too young to be in the industry. What 50-year-old man is going to trust his life savings with you?" And one guy, he said to me, he said, "Look, you've got it all against you. So be the hot shot, be the kid that knows more than anybody else, be that guy that's super savvy so that they can get past your lack of years and see your expertise." And again, I took that on board. I was like, right, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be the guy that knows more than anybody else. I'm going to know more about tax. I'm going to know more about investing. I'm going to know more about planning than anybody else in my office, in my industry. Okay. And I'm going to do that even though these guys are all 10, 15, 20 years older than me. And it kind of like soaked it in, owned it, and became it.
And how did you meet the guys who brought you in and started teaching you about sales?
Well, I went for a job interview. I was a ski instructor and it was summer. My mum kicked me out of bed. She's like, "Get out of bed. You got to go find a job." And I was like, "I got a job." She says, "There's no snow, you idiot. Go and find a job." And that's really how it started. And I got 3 job offers. One was as a trainee car salesman at a BMW showroom. The other one was a trainee real estate broker. And the other one was a trainee office equipment salesperson. So I went for the job at the BMW dealership because it came with a 3 Series BMW as a company car. And again, remember, you're 19 years old. Hey, okay, I'll take the car. And I was sacked after a month for having a bad attitude. So the next 2 job opportunities, one came with a company car, the other one didn't. I took that job. That was selling office equipment. And I remember the same old thing that's happened in these movies, sell me the pen. And that was the question I was asked. I got through the interview. And then I was put on this training program, and it was called the Early Bastard Club. And we used to train 6:15 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. every day. I used to have to drive to work, which was an hour's drive. So I had to leave at 5:15 to get in at 6:15. So I wake up at 4:30 every day to do that. And we trained for 2 hours every single day. And then after that training, we went and knocked on 100 doors, 100 company doors. And then we made 100 cold calls. And you're being taught to understand that you need to get rejection. Search for the no's before you get the yeses. Go find no's. No's are good. And so rather than being fearful of those phone calls of people saying no or giving me rejection in a number of different ways, politely or very impolitely, I was essentially being indoctrinated into this rejection is good mindset and mentality. And that's really what fundamentally shifted that my thinking between, if I do these actions, because remember, I'm 19, I'm dumb, I'm stupid, I don't know what's right or wrong, so I'm doing what I'm told. And so it's like joining the military, you just do what you're told. You eat when you're told to eat, you do the push-ups, whatever it is they teach you to do. Okay, then you go to bed, and then you become a soldier, don't you? You don't, consciously. It's like, but like you subconsciously become a soldier because it's repeated over and over and over and over and over again. This is what happens that's what happened to me. And I became a salesperson, and then I became obsessed with sales. And then when I came out of office equipment and I went to financial services, I then became obsessed with people not wanting to mess up their financial futures, because I'd sit down with a man who's 60 years old and blown his life savings because he got divorced because he shagged a hooker and his wife found out, or something happened and he lost it, or he wasn't good with it. He'd left it in the bank and it hadn't worked for him. And now he was going to retire in 5 years and he had no money to retire, but he was going to live for 30 years without enough money. It was like, and I was like, why are people doing this? It doesn't make any sense to me. People wanted to send their kids to college and it was going to cost $200,000 to send the kids to college, but they hadn't planned for it. I'm like, well, what do you think's going to happen when they turn 18 and you don't have the money? What do you think's going to happen when they turn 18 and one of them you can afford to send and the other one you can't? I mean, imagine having that conversation. Your eldest, well done, you're off to uni. Okay. The youngest, I'm really sorry, dad messed up his finances and so you can't go. It's like, why would you do that to your family? working out how you use your money to work for you. No, I'm going to spend it on shit. And it's just like, come on. And so I became super obsessed with people bulletproofing their own finances and making sure that they didn't make those mistakes by using whatever product or vehicle was available to them at the time. And when you become so obsessed with it, you have a level of conviction. And that level of conviction means you can sit and you can have really honest conversations. Sometimes the types of conversations that a parent will have with their teenage child, like an honest conversation that's quite ugly. Nobody really wants to have the conversation, but it's true. It was that type of conversation I was having with people. And I'm like, you're 55 years old and you're broke. What are you going to do? Let's just roll through to when you're 65 years old and you don't have enough money. Just tell me what your options are. I'll give you a clue. There's not many people finding work at the age of 65. So if you think you're going to continue working, look at how many people your company has employed at the age of 65 in the last 12 months. I'll argue it's none, maybe one at the best. So you're not going to continue to work. And even if you say you'll work yourself, can you guarantee your health? Can you guarantee you won't have a stroke, a heart attack, or anything like that? But if you can't guarantee that, how can you guarantee that's going to happen then? So we need to get that off the table. So here's your two other options. You can win the lottery, but you've got more chance of being struck by lightning. So have you ever been struck by lightning? No. Okay, so hope for that first, and then we'll hope to win the lottery afterwards. So there's an option for you. Okay, another option you've got, have you got a balaclava? Because we need it, because you're going to need to rob a bank. You don't look like a bank robber, but you're going to need to rob a bank. So can you do that? Probably not. So the only way you're going to get there is to save and plan. So what do you think you should do about it? And it's these kind of, that type of stuff was like ingrained in me. It was like, I've got to protect people from making bad decisions. And the most cost-effective way to do it was to speak to people when they were young. And I'm 23 and I'm meeting 25 and 30-year-olds. And that was kind of like youngish people. And it was like, look, guys, I meet people that have got to invest huge amounts of money just to protect their futures. You don't. You can put $1,000 a month away and it can get you to where you want to go. You can buy that property and get the mortgage paid over the next 25 years and then have the income from that property plus the capital appreciation. There's loads of stuff we can do, but you've got to get serious. And so I kind of lent into that in a really, really strong way.
And I'm sure you preach this with your employees as well. Is that something you look like you try to help all your employees do, right? When you hire someone new, is make sure that they're planning for the future?
I kind of build it into their pay. Okay. So they have the opportunity to earn equity in the company, and that's part of it. And I remember when I first was given equity in a company when I was young, I was given equity, like it was like a few hundred shares, and my dividend on those shares, so I think it was like $200 or $300. Okay, was my dividend. So it was nothing in the grand scheme of things. But you know what? I had equity. I was a shareholder. I was valued. I had a say. Actually, this was my company now as well. And so I know what that feels like when people go work somewhere and they feel they're part of the company, not just a number or an employee. And so that's what I do to try and make sure that the employees get the best experience they can, amongst other things that Danielle, my business partner, masterminds on a frequent basis.
And obviously here we are in Q1 of 2024, when technology is rapidly evolving here. With your business, do you plan on implementing AI? And if so, what steps are you taking to do that?
Here's an interesting thought. Look at the customers that you've got in your business and think about who's going to go and who's going to stay. Because the customers that aren't implementing AI might not be your customers in 12 months' time. So there's that to consider, I think, really importantly. The other thing is, how can we look at AI on every single part of what we do as a business and how we can implement that into the business, not to save costs, okay, but to be more efficient primarily. And so we care greatly about AI. We care looking at our offerings and seeing how AI could remove them or replace them. And so it's something that if you're not looking into it as a business owner right now, and you're not taking it seriously and you're thinking, oh, I don't really understand it, you're an idiot. Like, you are literally an idiot. And proof of that is Nvidia's stock price has just rocketed, continues to rocket. 3/4 of the AI chip market, Nvidia have. They're worth more than Amazon now. And I did an Instagram post yesterday saying, do you know what Nvidia do? And I think 60% were like, no. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know what they do? It's like mad. Look at the stocks that are flying and outstripping any cryptocurrency performance at the moment, and they're AI related stocks. So you can't hide from it. You can't bury your head in the sand, and as much as I see the thing with truck drivers and, automated trucks, I still think that kind of stuff's a little bit away. But in business and processes, I'm absolutely convinced. I mean, it is a good example right now. We're on a call, a Zoom recording. 12, 18 months ago, doing a Zoom recording, it would be so much better if somebody had a microphone. Okay, so much better, because the sound quality was so much better. But now there's a piece of software you can buy for peanuts that will take the recording and turn it into a studio session recorded quality just by using a little piece of AI. That's just one tool that exists out there. And I think we're spending a lot of time, learning about stuff we don't need to learn about. Everybody should be spending 15 minutes a day learning about AI in their industry, in their world. Just 15 minutes while you're sat on the toilet having a dump. Do it there. It doesn't matter where. Okay, but get it done somewhere, and learn and pay attention. And it will help change your business. It will help you understand your current clients and your new clients, and it'll also make you money, and that's important too.
And as a salesperson, I've seen these videos of AI cold calls, and you literally can't tell the difference if it's a human or an AI bot. Obviously, like I mentioned, you've been in sales for almost over 3 decades. What are your thoughts on seeing that?
Why not? Why not? I mean, at the moment, I can take my podcast now, and my podcast can be distributed into every single country in the world in their language, with me talking like I'm actually talking that language. That can happen right now. And if AI is going to replace salespeople, then why not? What's the problem? No. You got all the salespeople going, oh, no, it won't change my industry. That's what everyone's saying. Oh, it won't change me. It won't. Shut up. She's like, shut up. When I bought a house 20 years ago, I went and looked at loads of houses. Okay, 10 years after that, I bought 3 apartments in London online. Now you can buy houses without getting out your armchair. I mean, the Apple Vision Pro things, we're going to be buying real estate without even leaving our armchair in a different country, and we're going to be creating a smart contract to buy that real estate. It's like, hello. Oh, it's the future. It doesn't apply. Yeah, we didn't believe the car was going to replace the horse and cart. We certainly didn't believe the internet was going to be a thing. Okay, I remember writing checks with a checkbook when I used to go to the bank. Now they're closing all the banks down. It's like, this progress is happening. Okay, stop fighting it. And for the young people that are watching it right now, your situation will be a problem in 10 years' time. So get on top of it right now, see where it's taking you, look at your everyday tools that you're using, your gaming and whatever, look at how it's being brought in, and just think about how you can use AI more and more and more and more to make yourself more efficient and more successful.
And how, in terms of learning more about AI and gathering these tools and becoming more literate, what steps have you taken? I mean, where do your readings come from? Are you looking at YouTube? Are you asking ChatGPT AI itself? What steps are you doing to ensure that?
The greatest thing is you can do a Google search on any question you've got and to find the answer. So I can say, how will AI impact the medical insurance industry? I can ask that simple question, and it can take you down a 3, 4, 5 hour, 10-hour rabbit hole of learning about what's happening there. Now, you might not be in the insurance industry, so it doesn't matter to you. But how is AI going to change how we diagnose and fix automobiles? Okay, what is the industry you're in? Go just type in, use ChatGPT. I mean, what did I do? There you are. I was trying to come up with some scary and frightening insurance facts and stats the other day. Now, years ago, I'd be going onto different websites trying to hunt down something, okay, or pick up something someone said. Now I use ChatGPT, and it gave me 3 awesome voice noted stories. That we then took the 3 voice noted stories. We then turned that into AI of me telling the stories. Okay. And hey diddly dee, we're up and running. I work in the metaverse at the moment. The podcast is just about to go into the metaverse. What's going to happen there is that we're going to have a live audience in the metaverse on every episode. And at the end of the episode, we're going to have a Q&A with the guest and the audience. So now my guest becomes interactive with my audience. And so often do you get a podcast and one of my audience members goes, why didn't you ask this? Or why didn't you dig further into that? Or I would have loved to know this. Well, now you can come and be part of the episode. We'll film it live in the studio as normal. But at the end of it, we'll just say to the guests, look, we've got the audience here. There's 5 questions that they want to ask. Can we go ahead and ask them? And then they can engage in those questions and answers. And that's another example of how AI will be changing things, and looking into those different areas, I think, is so valuable. Just like anything, as it grows and evolves.
And what was the reason, what inspired you to create your podcast back in 2018?
So originally I was asked to do it for about a year. I didn't want to do it. Then I gave in, then I did it. Then I really liked it. Then Tony Robbins came on the podcast after a few months. We were able then to leverage Tony and get lots of other guests on. And it was a kind of whole personal development type thing. Got bored of the personal development stories, if I'm honest with you. Then I interviewed somebody that was on death row for 20 years for a crime he didn't commit. And then that kind of like took me into a world of fascinating stories of people that have been through unimaginable difficulties and then came out the other side positively and trying to, help humanity. And so that became really important for me, wanting to share these stories. But I think as a business development tool, there couldn't be anything better. I mean, you guys have got me here right now. Let's say you send me a message in 2 weeks' time. Hey, Spence, just want to say thank you so much for this. Don't suppose we could buy you a coffee or a virtual coffee? We've got a couple of questions for you. This then goes offline onto a virtual coffee. Hey, Spence, look, we've got this business. We're trying to raise capital here. Could you point me in the right direction? Do you know anyone? Could you give me some advice? What am I going to say? Fuck you? Or am I going to say, yeah, of course, guys. How can I help?
Yeah.
As a business development tool, it's there, it's a really important thing to do. From now on, I know who you are. You know who I am. Okay, are we best friends yet? No. But I tell you what, if I get a singing video from you on my birthday, how am I going to feel? I'm going to feel like you guys paid attention, and you paying attention is going to demonstrate to me there's some level of intelligence behind you guys. Maybe I should be investing some money in your business idea.
That's a great point you make, and I like the sales approach that always seems to come back with you with the singing birthday video. That's gotta be a trademark of yours.
It's an example, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's a good one. And when Evan asked you about launching your podcast, you said they wanted me to do it for quite a while. Who is they?
My social media team. So I was producing content, I was doing Facebook Lives, I was doing stuff, and they're like, we need to do a podcast, and I didn't even know what it was. And you just download it on your podcast app. I'm like, what's a podcast app? What the hell's that? But that's what it was back then, all those time and time ago. Then I interviewed a guy called Ken Rakowski, and Ken Rakowski did the first ever podcast in 1996. And he's done 20,000 interviews.
And when did you decide that you needed a social media team?
Because I'm about as good with technology as I am with automobile engines. I've got the first car we ever bought. We were in the car showroom, and my dad was talking to the sales manager, and I walked over to a car and lifted the hood. You call it the hood, we call it the bonnet. And I'm looking at it, and the salesman's telling me about this engine. And my dad walks over and he said to me, where does the oil go? And I just looked at the engine, and I looked at him, and he looked at me. He went, shut the hood. It was basically, you don't know shit about that. So I think that that's why there's a team, because it comes back to me delegating things I either don't know or don't have time for. I'd rather pay someone $1,000 a month to do that job, okay, than spend more than $1,000 worth of time learning about something that I'm not going to implement in the long term anyway.
Yeah, and I'd rather be good with my head than my hands anyway.
That's you.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so since becoming a podcast host back in 2018, what is something that you maybe struggled with when you first started, to whereas now you're like, oh, I got this, no problem?
Direction, guests, being a good interviewer, that relating to the podcast, they were things, imposter syndrome. I was sitting with Tony Robbins in a studio. I mean, it's like one of my heroes is sat there and I'm interviewing him. It's like, holy fuck, and I've got Gary Vaynerchuk, and I've become friends with Grant Cardone, and other people that have been successful, Formula One racing drivers and Mario Andretti, all this kind of stuff these people become part of my ecosystem. So I had a little bit of imposter syndrome around that as well. But you just have to keep believing in yourself. And you'll find a lot of the time your parents and other people around you would talk you out of being what you can be, and without pursuing your dreams. I was never allowed to even consider that I might be a professional YouTuber or a professional Fortnite player. But you guys are. You guys are able to do that kind of stuff if you want to do that kind of stuff. And so just keep your head down, tail up, and keep pushing, because you'll find at the other side of that resilience and that hard work and that consistency, just whether you like it or not, you become a winner.
So going back to your podcast, you've had Gary Vee, Tony Robbins. Who are some other guests that you've really had the privilege of hosting?
There's been 300 of them.
Mm.
Gosh, there's so many. Who else has been? Lisa Nichols was incredible. She made me cry. Nick Yaris, who was on death row for 20 years for a crime he didn't commit, moved me. Alex Lewis, what a story. Alex Lewis, young guy, had a girlfriend and a kid, worked in a bar in Oxford in England, wasn't feeling well one weekend. On Monday morning, his girlfriend went off to work. She said, go and see the doctor. Anyway, he was in and out of feeling really, really poorly. And so he called the ambulance to come and get him, and they took him to hospital. And he didn't know this. But by midnight that night, they amputated his arm.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is fascinating being able to talk to, people through a platform like this. I mean, we would never, if it weren't for the podcast, we would probably never, ever speak or interact with each other. So it is quite amazing. And I'm sure you've had a lot of interactions like such.
Let me just finish telling this story for the benefit of everyone. By midnight, they amputated his arm. By the following morning, they'd amputated both his legs, his other arm, his mouth, and his nose. And he got blood poisoning. And he was a handsome, good-looking guy like you guys are. So this guy has just lost his arms and his legs and his nose and his mouth. You just imagine that for a minute. I surrender. I'm going to wave my white flag and give up on life. He has every right to do. But 6 months later, he strapped an oar to his shoulders and he kayaked around Greenland to raise money for charity. He then climbed a mountain with no arms and no legs to raise money for charity. And he said to me on the podcast, you can keep my arms and my legs, because then I wasn't living and now I'm alive.
Wow.
That's just like, you should get him on your show. If you want an intro, I'll get him for you. What a man. How you can go through that and you come out the other side. It's like you're a force of nature to be able to do that. And so people like that I've had on the show that have got these incredible stories of what they've been through, and literally in front of your eyes take you on that journey with them and how they came out the other side. I mean, Nick Yaris, 20 years in Pennsylvania on death row for a crime he had nothing to do with. And Pennsylvania is the only state you can't sue the prison system. He left after 20 years for $5. Just think, he's got every right to hate everyone in the world. He's got every right to hate like you wouldn't believe, but he doesn't. He's just got love. And it just blows my mind. And these types of people with these types of stories are really, really, for me, so impressive.
When it comes to these guests too, are you reaching out directly, or is it your social media team?
So it depends. Sometimes I find them and I'm like, I want to know them more. Sometimes I've heard them on another podcast. Sometimes the team will come to me and say, we really want you to have this guy on the show. What do you think? So it's different. We really got into the crypto thing, and I just didn't want people getting confused by crypto. So, it was important that we had Michael Saylor and Robert Breedlove and Raoul Paul, who's really epic, to explain how crypto works to the vast majority of people, because still people don't understand it. So we wanted to go down the route. We wanted to talk to entrepreneurs that were real entrepreneurs, not fake entrepreneurs, but real people that had real struggles and real pain that had gone on to do good things. We wanted to get an understanding about how culture works in companies and how you create a culture of success in a business. Because a lot of the time people start as entrepreneurs, they don't really understand a lot of what's required and what's necessary. And so, yeah, and all of that now means, I have the largest English speaking podcast in this part of the world, which is wonderful. And I'm very grateful for that, which means I can reach out to most people and ask them to come on the show. And most people will say yes. And that means I can bring more value to my audience and more revenue to the podcast business.
Yeah, that's amazing. And like you said, Tony Robbins, another podcast you did with Sadia Khan was extremely interesting. So I see her a lot nowadays on my Instagram. It's definitely an exciting time, and you're in definitely one of the hubs to be hosting and filming a podcast.
I tell you what Dubai is for everyone that's listening and watching this right now. I live in Dubai. I've been in 19 years. It's the fastest growing city in the world. There's no income tax. And everybody here has to be optimistic. There's no unemployment benefit. There's no Medicare, Medicaid, none of that shit. Okay. If you don't work, you don't earn any money. If you don't earn any money, you don't eat. And there's a lot of fat people over here. So just mark my words. People are here hustling. People are here grinding. People are here in this city that's growing exponentially. And it's safe, it's secure, there's no issues with crime, there's no issues with drugs, there's none of that problem. And so it's drawing in all of these people that want to live this kind of life. And like Tucker Carlson said the other day after he went to Moscow and he interviewed Vladimir Putin, he's here in these parts of the world. He was in Moscow. He said it was beautiful. He's in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai, in Singapore. He's like, there's no cities left in America that are like that. What has the government done? Because if other governments in other parts of the world aren't democracies and they're able to deliver much more, then what are we fighting for? And I think that's really profound,
Yeah, I saw that as well. And it just goes to show one of my best friends from college from Dubai moved to Chicago after college, was there for about a year and a half, moved back to Dubai a month ago, and he's probably there for good. So you could see it, impacting cities here.
Hey, mate, don't get me wrong. London's a buzz. Go and have a long weekend in London. It's great. New York, absolutely great. Los Angeles and San Francisco, you can keep. Seattle, I love. Okay, Oregon, I love. Okay, San Diego, I love. I mean, Austin, Texas. What a great town to party in. There are some great places in the States to go visit. Could I live there after 20 years of being here without any of that drama? You just have to land at the airport. You go through the passport control place, and you got people talking to you like you're a piece of shit. Stand there, fingerprints here. No one's polite. You come to Dubai, and they're like, "Excuse me, sir, would you mind giving us your fingerprints, please?" "Oh, they are. Thank you for your passport." You go to America, it's like, okay, everyone in any form of uniform talks to people like they're dirt. And it's like they put the uniform on, all of a sudden it's like, I have the power, okay, to talk to you like shit and you will do what I'm told. It's like, who wants to go there?
Yeah.
Well, Spencer, with everything going on around the world right now, it's definitely a crazy time. What goals or projects are you currently working on that we can look forward to this year?
So we have a documentary coming out about human trafficking that took us 3 years to film, which will be coming out hopefully very soon. That's been a big part of my own emotional and work that I focused on. So we hope to be filming part 2 this year. So from a passion point of view, that on top of that, the businesses that we've been able to grow, who knows where we go with that, but there have been various companies wanting to buy bits, if not all of those group of companies. And we haven't been in a position where we've been having conversations about that type of stuff before. And so those types of conversations are interesting, if only from a learning experience. But for me, it's to make sure that I get to the end of this year and I've had impact in the way that I want to have impacts to as many people as I can. And remember to focus on being grateful. Every day that I focus on being grateful, good things happen. And it's such an easy thing to say, and it's an easier thing to do when you're older. But if you're young and you focus on gratitude, you can't be angry when you've got gratitude. You just can't be pissed off at stuff. When you're grateful for stuff, you can't be pissed off. And I think it's important that I focus on that and everyone else does too.
And where could the documentary be found?
It will either be on Hulu, Disney, Netflix, or Amazon. We haven't confirmed it yet.
Okay. Well, Spencer, we appreciate you coming on and sharing your perspective with us, sharing some stories and your time and energy, of course. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on the show, guys, and keep up the good work.
Thanks.
Thank you, Spencer.